My beloved child. There is something that was spoken in a quiet moment, something not meant for many ears, yet the weight of those words has been moving closer to you every hour. The person you love stood in front of someone they trust, and for a brief moment their voice changed. It became softer, slower, almost as if they were trying to protect something too important to speak too loudly. What they said about you did not begin with your name. It began with silence. And that silence carried meaning. Do not skip, because what happened in that conversation was not ordinary. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. A sentence was spoken that changed the atmosphere around them, and the person listening could immediately tell this was not a casual discussion. Even before your name was mentioned, there was already emotion in the room. They looked away first. Not because they had nothing to say, but because they had too much to say and did not know where to begin. The person listening asked only one simple question: why do you keep thinking about them? For a few seconds, there was no answer. That pause mattered more than any quick reply ever could, because sometimes the truth arrives slowly when it carries real weight. And when they finally answered, their words came carefully, as if each one had already been living inside them for a long time. They said, I do not know how to explain it, but there is something about them that stays with me even when everything else moves on. Listen carefully. That sentence was not spoken lightly. It was spoken after long thought, after hidden reflection, after moments they never showed anyone. The person in front of them noticed that even while speaking, they were remembering something. Perhaps your voice, perhaps your presence, perhaps one small detail you never imagined could remain so deeply in someone's heart. Do not skip. Because the next words became even more unexpected. They were asked, is it serious? And again, silence appeared. Not hesitation. Not confusion. Silence that comes when someone knows the answer but feels the answer is larger than what they usually admit aloud. Then they said, every time I try to ignore it, something reminds me again. That confession changed everything. Because now the conversation was no longer casual. Now it had entered a place where hidden feelings become impossible to hide completely. The person listening leaned closer, understanding that this was not about passing emotion. This was about something that had survived distance, time, distraction, and even pride. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person you love then described one thing about you that surprised even the listener. They did not speak first about appearance. They did not speak first about circumstances. They spoke about the way your presence feels when remembered. They said, even when they are not around, there is still a strange calm when I think about them. That sentence stayed in the room. Because calm is not something people mention unless it has touched them deeply. Calm means your presence entered places inside them where noise usually lives. Calm means your memory arrived where confusion once stayed. And still, the conversation continued. The listener asked another question, then why have you not said more? The answer came immediately this time. Because some things feel too important to speak carelessly. That answer carried more truth than they intended to reveal. There are feelings people protect not because they are weak, but because they matter so much that even words feel risky. They were not hiding emptiness. They were guarding meaning. And then came the sentence nobody expected. A sentence so direct that even the listener became quiet afterward. They said, "Sometimes I wonder if they know how much they changed the way I think." Read that again in your heart. Because this is where everything shifted. You may not have seen the exact moment your presence began affecting them, but inside them that moment became unforgettable. Something about you entered deeper than ordinary memory. Something stayed. Do not skip. Because the strongest words came after that. The person listening smiled and asked, "So what are you afraid of?" And for the first time, their voice lowered almost to a whisper. They said, "That what I feel may already be bigger than I planned." Those words were not spoken by accident. Those words were spoken by someone who has tried to measure emotion and discovered it no longer fits inside simple explanations. Bigger than planned means your importance grew beyond expectation. Bigger than planned means what started quietly did not remain small. And still, your name returned once more. This time spoken with unusual softness. As if even hearing your name aloud created a different atmosphere around them. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. The person listening then asked the final question of that moment. If they stood here right now, what would you say? And once again, silence. But this silence was different. It was not uncertainty. It was depth. And after that silence, they answered with a truth they had clearly held back for too long. I would probably say that they matter more than they realize. That was the sentence. The one that remained after the conversation ended. The one that kept echoing even after both people moved on to other subjects. Because some words do not disappear once spoken. Some words stay alive because they came from a place inside someone that had waited too long to speak. And tonight, that sentence carries weight for you. Not because every mystery is solved in one moment, but because hidden truths often begin exactly like this, quietly, unexpectedly, through words spoken when someone finally stops pretending they feel nothing. Do not skip. Because this is only the beginning of what was said. What happened after that conversation became even more surprising, because the person listening did not let the moment end there. They looked directly at the person you love and asked one more question, a question that immediately changed the expression on their face. When did you first realize they were becoming important to you? That question opened a door they had not planned to open. Do not skip. Because what came next carried a truth they had clearly kept hidden for longer than anyone realized. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They did not answer quickly this time. Their eyes lowered, as if they were searching through memories one by one, trying to locate the exact moment when everything began to feel different. Then slowly, almost carefully, they spoke. It was not one big moment, they said. It was many small moments that refused to leave. That answer changed the mood completely. Because small moments are powerful when they remain longer than expected. A voice remembered unexpectedly. A sentence replayed without invitation. A simple gesture that returns to the mind at quiet hours. These are not random memories. These are signs that someone has left a mark deeper than they intended to admit. The person listening noticed it too. And then they asked, "What kind of moments?" For a second, there was almost a smile, small, hidden, but real. Then came words that sounded as though they had been waiting inside for a long time. The way they speak without trying too hard. The way even ordinary things feel different when they are involved. The way I remember details I never expected to remember. That sentence was honest in a way they did not expect themselves. Do not skip. Because this is where the conversation became impossible to ignore. The listener leaned closer and said, "You notice more than you pretend." And this time, there was no denial. Only a quiet answer. Yes, probably more than I should. Those words mattered. Because people only speak like that when their heart has already gone further than their usual limits. They had clearly tried to keep things controlled, but control becomes difficult when someone continues to matter in quiet ways. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then something happened that surprised even the listener. Your name was spoken again, but this time with warmth that could not be hidden. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just real. And after saying your name, they added something that completely changed the meaning of everything before it. They have no idea how often they cross my mind. That sentence landed heavily. Because frequency reveals truth. People may hide feelings, but repeated thoughts reveal what truly remains active inside them. If someone crosses the mind often, it means something unfinished still lives there. The listener then smiled and asked carefully, "So why keep it inside?" The answer came immediately, almost as if they had asked themselves that same question many times before. Because sometimes when something matters too much, you become careful with every word. That was not fear. That was value. Carefulness appears when someone does not want meaning to be misunderstood. Do not skip. Because the strongest revelation had still not arrived. The person listening then asked one final question that shifted everything. What would surprise them most if they heard you now? And for the first time, there was no long pause. The answer came directly. That I speak about them with more honesty here than I ever have anywhere else. That confession changed the air. Because honesty spoken privately often carries more truth than words spoken publicly. In that moment, they were not performing. They were not trying to impress. They were simply speaking what had become impossible to deny. And then came a sentence so unexpected that even the listener became silent afterward. They said, "Sometimes I hear something ordinary during the day, and somehow it reminds me of them immediately." Think about that carefully. Ordinary moments becoming connected to someone means that person has moved beyond simple attention. It means your memory appears in daily life without warning. A voice, a word, a place, a song, a passing thought, anything can suddenly become connected to you. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. The listener then asked softly, "Do you think they would believe any of this?" A small pause. Then a quiet answer. Probably not. Because I never show how much stays in my mind. And that sentence explained everything. Not all feelings arrive loudly. Some stay hidden because they are still being understood by the one carrying them. Some truths remain behind silence because silence feels safer than revealing too much too soon. But the truth still came out that day. And before the conversation ended, one final sentence appeared, one sentence spoken almost like a private truth escaping unexpectedly. If they ever knew everything I have said here, they would understand why forgetting them never became easy. That was the sentence left hanging in the room. No one rushed to fill the silence after that. Because some words are too complete to interrupt. Do not skip. Because what was said after this became even deeper, and the next part reveals why that conversation did not end inside that room, it continued inside their thoughts long after they walked away. Later, when that conversation should have been over, something unexpected happened. The person you love did not leave immediately. They remained there for a few extra moments, as if something unfinished still pressed against their thoughts. The listener noticed it and stayed quiet, because sometimes silence invites the deepest truth to appear. And it did. Do not skip, because the next words were spoken more slowly than anything before them. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Without being asked another question, they suddenly said, "There is something strange, even when I decide not to think about them, something always brings them back." That sentence came without preparation. No hesitation. No attempt to change the subject. Just honesty arriving unexpectedly. The listener turned fully toward them, understanding immediately that this was no longer a simple conversation. This had become one of those rare moments when someone begins revealing what they normally protect. And then came a silence that felt even deeper than before. Because once truth begins, more truth usually follows. A few seconds later, they added, "It happens at random times. In the middle of ordinary things. And somehow it always feels stronger than before." Those words carried more meaning than they may have realized. Because random thoughts do not return with strength unless the connection behind them remains active. A passing memory may fade. But something that returns stronger each time has roots deeper than passing attention. Do not skip. Because what they said next changed everything again. The listener asked carefully, what returns first, the memory, the feeling, or the question? And after a brief pause, the answer came. The feeling. That answer mattered more than anything said before. Because memory can be accidental. Feeling is different. Feeling returns only when something inside still recognizes unfinished meaning. They did not say your name immediately this time. Instead, they looked down, almost smiling to themselves, and then spoke in a voice that sounded quieter than before. It is difficult to explain, but some people stay in your mind in a way that does not ask permission. That sentence stayed in the room. Because everyone understands ordinary memories, but this was not described as ordinary. This was described as something that arrives on its own, something that remains even when life moves in other directions. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The listener then asked one question that opened an even deeper answer. So what happens when their name appears? This time, there was no attempt to avoid the truth. They answered. Everything else becomes less important for a moment. That confession was stronger than they intended. Because when someone says everything else fades even briefly, it means attention shifts naturally toward what matters more than expected. And then came another sentence, spoken almost carefully, as if they knew it revealed too much. I noticed details I never thought I would care about. The listener asked, "What kind of details?" A short breath. Then. The way they speak. Certain words they use. Even little things that nobody else would think matter. That answer explained what had been hidden all along. Attention always reveals value. People do not remember small details unless those details quietly become important. Do not skip. Because the strongest part came next. The listener then said softly, "You sound like someone who has already given this too much thought." For the first time, they did not deny it. Instead, they answered with a sentence that completely changed the mood. "Maybe I have, more than anyone knows." That sentence landed heavily. Because hidden thought often carries more truth than visible expression. What people say openly may be limited. What they think privately is often far deeper. And then came something unexpected, something almost spoken like a confession to themselves. They said, "Sometimes I wonder if they can feel any of this without hearing it." That was the kind of sentence that only appears when feelings have already gone beyond simple curiosity. Because people do not wonder whether someone can feel their thoughts unless those thoughts have become constant enough to matter deeply. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. The listener then asked one final question before the moment changed. If they were standing here right now and heard everything, what would be hardest for you to admit? There was a longer pause than before. A pause filled with thought. Then came the answer, spoken with unusual honesty. That I have tried to act normal while carrying far more than I ever planned. That sentence revealed everything quietly. Trying to act normal means something inside has already changed. Carrying more than planned means emotion has moved further than expected. And before leaving, they added one final line that stayed because what happened after they walked away revealed even more than what they said aloud. After they walked away, the conversation should have ended there, but it did not. Because sometimes the strongest truth is not what someone says in the room, but what they do immediately after leaving it. The person you love took only a few steps before stopping again. Not because someone called them back. Not because anything interrupted them. They stopped because their own thoughts had suddenly become louder than everything around them. Do not skip, because what happened in that quiet moment revealed more than every sentence spoken before. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They looked at nothing for a few seconds, almost as if replaying every word they had just admitted. And then, very softly, as though speaking only to themselves, they repeated your name once again. That mattered. Because people only repeat a name in silence when the feeling behind it is still active even after the conversation ends. The listener, who had not fully left yet, noticed this and asked one final unexpected question. Why do you always become quiet after speaking about them? That question arrived without warning. And this time, the answer came with no attempt to hide anything. Because every time I speak honestly about them, I realize how much I usually leave unsaid. That sentence changed the entire meaning of everything before it. It meant the earlier words were not the full truth. They were only the part that escaped. Do not skip. Because the next revelation carried even more weight. The listener stayed still and asked carefully, "Then what remains unsaid?" A longer silence came. Not empty silence, thoughtful silence. Then they answered in a lower voice. That some days I pretend I am focused on other things, but even then something small reminds me of them before the day ends. That answer was quiet, but powerful. Because hidden remembrance is often stronger than spoken attention. If someone appears in thought even during ordinary hours, it means they are not just remembered, they are woven into the rhythm of daily life. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then came another question. What kind of small things? And the answer arrived almost immediately, as if those moments had been counted many times before. A phrase. A sound. A place. Even a simple moment that suddenly feels connected. That sentence carried something extraordinary. Because connection is not created by force. It appears naturally when someone has already taken more space inside the heart than expected. And then, for the first time, there was a smile they could not hide. Small, but unmistakable. The listener noticed and asked, "Why are you smiling now?" The answer was surprising. Because some memories arrive before I even call them. That sentence stayed there like a truth too honest to correct. Memories arriving without effort means your presence has settled deeper than intention. Do not skip. Because what they said next was the strongest line yet. The listener then said quietly, "You speak as if they changed something important." And after one breath, they answered. They did. Even if they never fully saw it. That confession changed everything. Because change is never mentioned casually. People only admit being changed when they have felt a lasting difference inside themselves. And then came a sentence so unexpected that even the listener had no immediate reply. They said, "There are moments when I wonder if they understand how naturally my thoughts return there. Not forced. Not dramatic. Just natural return." That word mattered. Because what returns naturally often belongs deeper than what arrives by effort. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. The listener finally asked one final question before parting. If one day they heard every word you said today, what would surprise them most? This time the answer came without delay. That I speak carefully outside, but inside my thoughts are much louder. That line revealed what had remained hidden the entire time. Quiet outside. Louder inside. A person who carries thoughts strongly often chooses fewer words, not because there is less to feel, but because there is too much to explain simply. And before leaving completely, they added one final truth, softly, almost as though speaking to the air itself. Sometimes what matters most becomes visible only in the things you never say aloud. That sentence remained after everything else ended. Because some truths do not need volume to become unforgettable. Do not skip. Because what happened later, when they were completely alone, revealed something even deeper than what they dared to admit in front of someone else.